Thank you. This is Helena Hansson. She's the program director of Mistra Food Futures, and she's also a professor of agricultural and food economics at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, SLU. Welcome.
Hi.
And this is Karolina. No, sorry. This is Helena. How could I? This is Helena Hansson. Should I do this all over again? No.
It's fine.
It's fine. You're on the top there. Karolina.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
You are the program director of Mistra Sons.
Yeah, the deputy.
The deputy.
Yes.
Yeah, but today you are the program director. And you're also at the Swedish Road and Transport Research Institute.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes.
EVL. Okay.
No, VTI.
VTI.
Yeah.
This is EVL.
This is EVL.
IVL.
Hello.
This is Lars Zetterberg. And you're the program director of Mistra Carbon Exit.
Yes.
And your voice is a little bit destroyed from a normal cold that is over and done with.
We're just recovering from a
yes,
cold.
but you have a very interesting voice.
Yeah,
we'll
I think
keep
so
you
too.
to the end. So we will start with Helena. And we've asked those three persons to give some reflections from their programs, from the perspectives of your research programs. So please, Helena, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. So, I'm a bit biased, of course, but I would like to bring food into the whole discussion. Food and agriculture represents about 1/3 of the total greenhouse gas emissions from human activities. If we look, and that is the whole food system activities. If we look at only agriculture, we are down to about 23-24%, depending a bit on how you count. But that means that what we consume, our diets, and also how we produce food is really, really a cornerstone of the whole transition of society towards sustainability. It's also linked to a whole lot of our own health, which is also part, of course, of sustainability. So that's one point I really, really want to make today. Food is at the center of transitioning societies. Then I also want to sort of tap into this discussion about sustainability and geopolitical tensions. And we all know that after the invasion of Ukraine, societal discourse started to shift towards more of how do we create preparedness. And in the food sector, people all of a sudden started talking about preparedness with respect to food. How do we make sure that we have enough food available if our borders would be shut off, for instance? One perspective we have been working with in Mistra Food Futures and also in other research that I'm involved in is that we need to think about sustainability, transition and preparedness at the same time. And as we transition towards sustainability, we also build systems that are, well, that have better preparedness because these systems are resilient. And also from a simple society, or even not simple, but from a societal perspective, wouldn't it make sense, you know, to think about how do we transition towards sustainability and better preparedness at the same time, to avoid that we threw in a lot of public funding, for instance, into policy processes that perhaps only creates problems for something else, instead of kind of killing two birds with one stone. So that's one point I want to make. I also want to bring up this about heterogeneity. We talk about policies, we need information, we need to educate people and so on. But from our research, it's also quite evident that people are different. So even if, for instance, environmental identities, so identities more in line with the sustainability transition, is driving these decisions, we also see from research that there is great heterogeneity both among consumers and among producers. And this is quite important to think about to avoid that policies create polarization and that we kind of build even more polarization. To think about how policies can create bridges between people that are sort of strong proponents for environmental policies in relation to those who are less strong proponents. And I also want to tap into the very first keynote we had here today about how our discourses, how we talk about things. And it's quite evident, I think, also from what we heard today, that simply providing information, you know, thinking that if people only know, if consumers only know exactly what food they would purchase or exactly how they would transport themselves, that will not be enough. We cannot really believe in simple information provision as a source for transformation. We need to think about how we can work to actually achieve behavioral change much more in depth than simple information provision can provide. And me being an economist, that is a bit tough to say, because we tend to believe that with new information we update our preferences and behave accordingly, but that's not the case. And then finally, rounding off, I would like also to emphasize that we really need to think about several aspects at the same time. We cannot only think about climate or only biodiversity or only health or only the profits of companies. We need to think about this all at the same time. So sustainability of the food system, for instance, is really about healthy foods. It is about production that doesn't sort of impact on climate and biodiversity in a negative way. It's about having businesses that can be resilient over time and be able to produce over time. So I was really happy to hear now in the final panels about businesses for several purposes. I think that is really where we need to go. And this is difficult, and we need to really allow ourselves to think about several things at the same time.
Thank you so much, Helena, and a nice bridge, I think, to Karolina.
Thank you, Helena.
Thank you.
I've been working in a program called Mistra SAMS, Sustainable Accessibility and Mobility Services, for 7.5 years. And I mean, we focus on transport, which is also a third, if we only count the emissions in Sweden from our transport systems. And this is also known as a quite tricky sector to change. So it's a bit related to food, I think. We also know that technical developments are really important, but it will not be enough. So it gets quite political and wicked and tricky to work with in that sense. But what struck me today is that this is actually a sector where we have already started to come up with some new framings and new concepts and new language. So in Mistra SAMS we have been careful to focus not only on mobility but also on accessibility. And the point is that what we need as humans and as society isn't transport. What we need is access to things. And with that concept, that opens up also for new ways of seeing how we can work with transport issues. So, I mean, if we think about it as a matter of access, then we can accomplish that with not only transport, but also with land use that increases spatial proximity, for instance. But that also is, we can also work with digital services as a way to, perhaps you don't at all need to travel to get access to what you need. So with that, that's an example of a new concept that really opens up new ways of thinking and new solutions as well, I think. And after this afternoon, it was amazing with the discussions and the panels. And I think we really should focus quite a lot when we think ahead about transformation and transformative capacity. Because there are bits and pieces here that are really important if we as a society will be able to move towards a more sustainable state and sustainable pathways, especially in sectors where it gets tricky and political and where there are different values at stake and so on. There's a lot of research about transformative capacity. I would like to highlight 3 things that are important in the transport sector, based upon a German researcher called Karolina. So, I mean, if we are about to develop a stronger transformative capacity as a society to reduce the negative climate and sustainable development effects from the transport sector, we need to be able to identify and unlock the structures that hinders us to move towards more sustainable development pathways. There's a lot of physical structures, of course, but also mental, the ways we think, the language again. And one example is that we still continue to plan for increased car use in our planning systems today, even though we know we shouldn't do that. That's a fact. And that's about the methods, the analytical tools we have that continues to create that kind of inertia. So identifying those structures that hinders us is really important. Secondly, it's important to continue to imagine, discuss, develop alternatives, test and learn from them. That's something we have been doing on our research program for the last 7.5 years. And I mean, that's also something that is quite common in Mistra programs, to test and try and learn. That's really important. And that's being done a lot today, I think. But I think the tricky thing is to make sure to link the lessons learned into the systems and structures that, the ordinary practices of decision making. And the third thing is really the need for some kind of orchestrating force. The capacity to put things together, to link between sectors, to formulate and drive common goals and strategies forward. That also links to the panel on leadership, of course, and political leadership, which is extremely important. And we've been doing interviews with politicians in Mistra Sams, and I think what is important to stress perhaps is that as soon as one says political leadership, you can easily imagine like a political champion or something. But I mean, political leadership is relational. So political leadership requires relations with us as citizens, business organizations, other political parties. Of course, I mean, that's obvious, but I think it's an important thing to think about. And for politicians within the mobility field, it's also quite clear that even though it's difficult when things get controversial and conflict-loaded, it's also potentially a source of political energy. So it's important to sometimes also get down to the values that are at stake. And that's also, I think, something that is important for us as researchers, that some things we can find out scientific answers to, but many things here are also about values and ethics and so on. So, yeah,
I think so
that's
much, Karolina. Great.
Thank you.
Great bullets there. And over to you, Lars.
Thank you so much. Okay, so actually, I should start by saying happy birthday to Mistra, and I've been actually involved in different Mistra projects for the last 20 years. So it's a bit of a celebration this year as well. Currently, I'm running this project called Mistra Carbon Exit, where I've had the opportunity and fortune to work with some really good scientists. And so I'm going to share some of these findings with you about the green transition. And so one of the things we thought about when we started the project in 2017 was that we will have to be seeing this transformation occurring while the program is running. And it has actually happened. So now we pretty much are seeing the transformation which is going on right now, mostly in the energy sector, where we're seeing a massive implementation of renewables. The price of solar cells have dropped dramatically, and now it's actually, for me as a private person, it's a very good deal to put panels on my roof and sell electricity from solar, so that's quite incredible. Well, we know pretty much what technologies will bring us to this a low carbon future. So it's going to be the transformation of the energy system. It's going to be electrification in industry and in transports. There's going to be a certain part of renewable fuels still being used, mainly for aviation, we think. And there's going to be some element of carbon capture and storage. So that's the first one. The second thing is that we've looked at costs. And surprisingly, the cost for the society is very low for this transformation. The problem is that for some actors, for instance, the ones that are producing green steel or intend to produce green steel and green cement, those costs are significant. But if you go down the supply chain and look at the cost increase for the consumer, it's marginal, it's hardly noticeable. So, in other words, cement and steel, green cement and green steel are expensive, but the cost increase for the apartment or the car is marginal.
That's good news.
That's very good news. And the third good news is that industry is on board this transformation. Well, actually, they are driving the transformation because there's a green tech race going on, not only in Europe, but in the United States and in China and the rest of Asia. So they're competing to develop these green technologies because they know that they can win market shares from these technologies. And if they don't do it, there's sort of, if they are sitting on fossil technology in 15 years, they'll be out of business. So all these good news are good, of course, but if we look at what's actually happening, the progress is quite slow. Apart from the energy system, if we look at Sweden, emissions in industry have only gone down with 25% in the last 35 years, and in transportation, I think it's 28%. So we have still a long way to go. And so why is this going so slow? Well, the simple answer is that it's been cheaper to continue to pollute. And the reason is that this, the social cost of carbon, this externality, has not been included in the business cases for industry up until now. But this is about to change. The EU launched last year a very ambitious climate package, Fit for 55, and just before shortly after it was communicated, but before it was implemented, we saw the price of emission allowances soar to above 100 euros per ton. And that's very important because at those prices, these green products, green steel, green cement, is actually competitive with traditional materials. So it's really important that this policy will continue and I'm sure it's going to drive this transformation. But it's also sad to see that in Sweden, the Swedish government is actually rolling back important policies, mainly in the transport sector, but also they're making it more difficult for wind power, for instance. And I think the reason for this is that they're afraid that they're going to lose voters, and we'll have these yellow vest demonstrations that we saw in France a couple of years ago. But when we do investigations on people's attitudes, we can see that the majority of Swedes and Americans and everyone we've tested understand that climate mitigation is important and that's a cost that they have to take. So they're willing to do these sacrifices. Not everybody, but the majority. And I think for those that are not convinced, I think there's a need for... and of course there's a dilemma here, because the politicians that implement climate investments, they have to bear the cost, or their citizens have to bear the costs, while the benefits come in later mandate periods. So it's like somebody said earlier, it's so easy to push these decisions ahead and hope that somebody else will take them.
We are back in time, aren't we? The discussion of time that we started this.
Yes, but and about time, I think it's important that we need to do some storytelling. We need to explain what this low carbon future looks like, because I'm convinced it's not going to look very bad. We're going to be living lives pretty much as we do now. We're going to be living in houses that are made of concrete and steel and wood, and we're going to be going to work in buses and cars also. We're going to, go and see our grandparents on weekends, and we're going to have drinks with friends and dance in places like this. So life's going to be good, and we're going to actually have more leisure time to enjoy these things. There's a couple of things that have to change, and we've talked about food, so that's definitely going to have to change. Not dramatically, maybe back to how we were eating in the early 70s, so less meat and more vegetables. We're not going to have to go back and live in caves, but it's just we're going to have to compromise on some things. And another thing is the overseas travel, of course. So not going to Asia for holidays, but reduce that. So But apart from that, I don't think things are going to change very much in this more positive future.
Let's continue the discussions over the mingling. But thank you so much, Lars, Karolina, Helena, for summarizing this from your perspectives. And let's also emphasize that there are so many more Mistra researchers here today that you can talk to during the reception. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And welcome up, Anna. You can go there. Anna, it is time to conclude and to say welcome to the mingle. But I know that you have also a few things you would like to say before that.
Yes, thank you, Eva. I really hope we're going to be able to dance in the future. This is a dance palace, jazz palace, so there will be music, there will be literature, there will be good food, and I think there is a future, really. So this afternoon is about to end, and personally I feel both humble and proud of being representative of Mistra. But I also feel a sense of urgency. That's clear that we need to act. We need to change how the society actually is organized. 25 years ago, I was a program manager for a Mistra program called Vastra. That was a program focusing on sustainable water management. It was a program where political scientists, by the way, we have one actually here, Victor Gallas, you were a PhD student in that program a long time ago. Political scientists, economists, biologists, agronomists, modelers, and we all worked together. And we also arranged stakeholder dialogues. We talked to stakeholders about acceptance of measures. And I will never forget the discussions, the heated discussions that took place in these stakeholder groups with researchers and farmers and people from the government. They were all living in the area of Rönneå, and they continued into the hot summer nights. And I remember the inspiration that the stakeholders felt when they understood and realized that their knowledge and their experience mattered. I think it was Lars that mentioned knowledge. It's not only research, it's knowledge in a wide perspective. After the program ended, I saw it with my own eyes, how this information, that knowledge that we developed in the program was implemented at the Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management, where I was head of scientific department. The stakeholder dialogues, the models, we used all over Sweden in planning in the catchment areas. I think that this captures the uniqueness of Mistra. Research and innovation in close dialogue with the stakeholders and the users of the knowledge in society. I see many of you in this room that contributed to Mistra's research. It's a privilege to be part of this community. I feel really happy to be part of that. The challenges are great, that's no doubt. But I feel confident that we can make a difference together. In order to speed up the journey towards the future, this year we have made 2 special calls at Mistra. The first one is called Mistra Challenge. It's cutting-edge, brave, bold projects focusing on 2 themes. One is green diplomacy, and the other one is circular economy and how to accelerate that and how to use less resources. The second one aims at fostering the next generation of environmental research leaders. And an invitation was sent out this week to all universities in Sweden. Finally, I'd like to thank all excellent inspirational speakers. It was really a thunderstorm in my head. Someone said in the beginning, it's really getting hot up here. They gave us insights and also encouraged us to act and take responsibility. And yes, Andri, Schnar, Magnusson, we need to become better at telling stories. The two fantastic moderators, you must be really tired now. Oh, I'm not. Thank you so much, Rob and Eva, for moderating this event. So inspirational. And also, yes. And also the employees at Mistra, you are all over the place and you've been working really hard. You've been working for a long time to make this event happen. A special thank you to Malin Lindgren, the project manager, and Linnea Kasmo and Jessica Berg. Thank you so much for all the hard work. And also thank you, Nalen, the National Palace of Dance, for hosting this event. Now we invite you all to share some food and refreshments to celebrate Mistra 30 years. Welcome to the next 30 years.